Incredible truth exposed. My daughter-in-law's shocking scheme to seize my husband's $500K legacy. Ellen sat in her modest living room, papers scattered across the coffee table like the remnants of a life torn apart. Her heart ached for the kindness of her husband, the man who had always believed in hard work and family. Since his sudden passing, she felt like she was drowning in grief while trying to stay afloat for their family. Discovering the $500K life insurance policy had briefly ignited a flicker of hope. It was meant to secure their future, but now it felt like a weight, an anchor tethering her to the ground as the world carried on without him. Jamie, her daughter-in-law, had stepped in at the perfect moment, her voice smooth and honeyed as she spoke of unity and collaboration. Ellen felt a tangle of gratitude and apprehension. Could she really trust Jamie to share the burden? As the days wore on, Ellen felt that gratitude morphing into something else, an unsettling sensation that crept along her spine. Jamie's enthusiasm felt performative, and every time she suggested a pivot to the flower shop's operations, Ellen's stomach twisted tighter. The flower shop was where Ellen poured her devotion, each arrangement blooming with love. But as Jamie's influence seeped into its walls, vibrant petals began to wilt under the weight of the unrecognizable ideas Jamie introduced. Wholesale, she said, was the future. To Ellen, it sounded cold, devoid of the personal touch that had made the flower shop a family sanctuary. She questioned her daughter's motives with rising dread, an anxiety that lodged itself deep in her throat. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. The unease morphed into fear. Ellen's suspicions churned violently as she realized Jamie's dream plan seemed less about the shop's survival and more aligned with Jamie's personal gain. Each discovery, whether it was Jamie's mismanagement during deliveries or how she spoke about the insurance funds, pulled Ellen deeper into a spiraling conflict. She felt the threads of family loyalty tangling around her feet, restricting her movements. At a family gathering, she overheard Jamie on the phone, her voice a slick whisper plotting the business's takeover. Waves of betrayal crashed over Ellen, filling her with desperation. Rage bubbled beneath the surface, her chest tightening as she wrestled with emotions like a vengeful tempest. How could Jamie feign unity while secretly scheming to dismantle everything Ellen had built? Ellen stood at the kitchen counter, arranging a simple bouquet, her hands shaking as frustration coursed through her veins. Her heart thudded against her ribcage, a fierce, urgent call to action. She remembered her husband's words. Family is everything, but it must be earned, not stolen. The weight of loyalty threatened to crush her, and she feared that a confrontation might shatter the delicate bonds holding their family together. As Sunday dinner drew closer, Ellen's resolve sharpened. This was her moment. With every heaviness in the room echoed by her heart's rhythm, she could no longer remain silent. She would face Jamie head-on. Drawing a deep breath to fortify her trembling spirit, she imagined how the atmosphere would crack open when she finally spoke the truth. Jamie, we need to talk about the future of this family. The tension hung thick in the air, poised to ignite a clash that would forever alter the contours of their relationships and values. Ellen's palm pressed against the cool countertop, a stabilizing force as she could feel the gravity of her decision weighing heavily on her. She thought of the flower shop, its walls steeped in memories, laughter, and love. The very essence of her husband's unwavering support that had allowed her to create something beautiful. As the clock ticked down to family dinner, her heartbeat accelerated, an irregular drumbeat of determination and fear winding together into something powerful. When the doorbell rang, Ellen's breath caught in her throat, an unwelcome reminder of the confrontation that awaited. Jamie's enthusiasm echoed in her mind like an unwanted refrain. Could she still perceive kindness in Jamie's offers, or was it all a mask for ambition? Ellen pushed those doubts aside, focusing instead on the delicate bouquet she had prepared, an arrangement that felt like a piece of her heart she could hold up during the impending storm. The dining room was adorned modestly but tastefully, with the flickering candles casting soft shadows as shadows danced across Jamie's glowing face when she arrived. The sound of laughter erupted as Jamie embraced Ellen's son, but for Ellen, the laughter rang hollow, a stark contrast to the quaking intensity that simmered just beneath the surface. "Wonderful spread, Mom," Jamie exclaimed, glancing around the table. Her overly casual tone felt like a thin veneer over the sharp edge of her intentions. "Thank you," Ellen replied, forcing a smile. She felt the tension winding tighter around her chest like a noose. Ellen was no longer sure what the night would hold, but she knew she could no longer sit idly by. They joined hands, and Ellen offered a half-hearted prayer, her mind racing as she felt the pressure of Jamie's eyes on her. As the main course was served, conversation flowed like the wine, but Ellen's mind was elsewhere. Every forkful she ate felt heavy, laden with the unspoken truths leaking into the air. When the laughter peaked, Ellen seized the moment, her voice steadier than she felt. "Jamie, we need to talk about the shop." The clinking of glasses stilled, an uneasy silence draping over the table. Jamie's smile faltered, replaced by a fist clenching on her knee, revealing the first fissures in her composure. "What's the matter, Ellen?" she asked, her tone deceptively soothing. "It matters because I care about the shop, our family legacy," Ellen replied, her heart thudding with urgency. "I hear you talking about wholesale, about changes, and it feels off. I can't shake the feeling that your plans don't include me." Jamie's facade slipped momentarily. The tension stretched taut between them, a barely concealed aggression bubbling up to the surface. "I'm trying to save it, Ellen. We can't rely on old ways when there are better opportunities out there. Don't you want what's best for the business?" "I want what's best for our family," Ellen shot back, emboldened by the reality of her emotions. Each word felt like a step further into uncharted territory. She was poised on a precipice between loyalty and self-preservation. This isn't about business. This is about trust. Jamie stood abruptly, defiance radiating from her. "You think you understand trust? You're the one who keeps holding on to your ideas like they're sacred. It might be time to let them go." Ellen felt the gasp of shock ripple through her. Jamie had crossed a line, and in that moment, Ellen understood. It was not simply about the business anymore. It was about asserting her role as matriarch in the family. "I won't let you take this from me, Jamie. Not my family, not my husband's legacy." Ellen's voice grew stronger, a declaration that resonated with newfound resolve. As Jamie opened her mouth, perhaps to retaliate, Ellen braced herself for what would come next, knowing that the clash of wills had only begun. The truth was unraveling, and she was at its heart, grappling with a world transformed by secrets and ambition. The atmosphere crackled with possibilities. The conversation around them faded into a distant hum as Ellen prepared for whatever Jamie would reveal next. It was becoming evident that the family's unity stood on precarious ground, and the path ahead would demand clarity she had yet to discover. With every ounce of her being, she sensed a shift, the kind that might elevate her understanding of herself and her family. The stakes were higher than she had ever anticipated, and she could no longer predict where this pivotal moment would lead. As the silence settled like a weight, Ellen finally realized she was not just fighting for the shop, she was fighting for her very identity. "Tell me what's really going on, Jamie." The command hung in the room as Ellen prepared to confront not just Jamie, but all the unspoken truths hidden beneath the surface. Ellen's heart raced, the air thick with tension as she stared into Jamie's unflinching gaze. The question hung heavy between them, each more defiant than the last. What would Jamie say? What secrets lay simmering beneath the surface, threatening to boil over? "Really, Mom?" Jamie scoffed, turning her back as if the conversation weren't worth her time. "You want to dig into my motivations now? You don't think this is about more than you?" Ellen could see the flicker of vulnerability behind Jamie's bravado, but it was quickly shielded by a veneer of anger. "Then let me in," Ellen insisted, her voice rising ever so slightly. "Tell me what you're really planning, Jamie. I can feel there's something more you're not saying." The cracks in her composure were widening, and part of her felt guilty for pushing her daughter-in-law, but guilt was a luxury she could no longer afford. "I'm trying to save a business that's been circling the drain. You're so stuck in your old ways that you can't see it." Jamie's hands shook with frustration as she clenched her fists. The words stung, but Ellen wouldn't back down. "I built that shop from the ground up. It was my husband's dream too. If there's a plan to save it, I want to be a part of it, not sidelined while you make those decisions without me." "I don't have time to explain myself to you," Jamie spat, but there was uncertainty lurking beneath her anger. Ellen noted the rapid pace at which Jamie's breath hitched, a telltale sign of her own internal turmoil. "You might feel there's no time, Jamie, but you would be surprised what some honest communication could unveil," Ellen countered, feeling a newfound strength surge through her. Each word sharpened her resolve, her previous fears now morphing into a stance of empowerment. She was not just defending a business, she was staking her claim on a legacy, one she had nurtured through blood and tears. "So what do you want?" Jamie finally asked, her tone softer, yet still laced with almost palpable resentment. "You want to keep things just the way they are? I'm telling you, change is inevitable. You should be grateful I even care enough to consider options." Ellen paused, contemplating her response. In this moment of clarity, Ellen realized that it wasn't merely about defending her old ways. It was about anchoring herself amidst the swirling uncertainty. "I don't want to cling to the past, Jamie. I want to build something for the future. With you. But it has to include trust." The silence that wrapped around them was deafening, filled with unacknowledged emotions that hovered like storm clouds. Ellen took a breath, her strategic mind racing. What if we combined our visions? What if we created a space where both your modern ideas and the legacy my husband envisioned could thrive? We need a change, but it shouldn't fracture our family. Jamie's face shifted from anger to contemplation, wrestling internally with what Ellen had proposed. Ellen hoped this sonic shift meant they could approach the deeper issues at play in their relationship. She was uncertain, yet desperately optimistic. Just as Jamie opened her mouth to respond, Ellen felt the weight of all the choices they both faced. Both were standing on a precipice, terrified of what lay beneath them. Would they build a bridge together, or would their unresolved conflict create a divide that could fracture their family for good? "Ellen," Jamie said, her voice surprisingly steady, "maybe it's time for you to let go of control and let me show you how I envision this business running. If we're going to work together, it has to be on my terms too." A chill slid down Ellen's spine at the admission. The moment felt irrevocable, a pivot point that could shatter everything or open the door to unexpected opportunities. Determined to navigate this treacherous terrain, Ellen prepared for whatever lay ahead, knowing she must confront not only Jamie but herself, wrestling with her desire for control and her hope for collaboration. "With your terms, what does that mean for our relationship?" Ellen asked, voice steady yet vulnerable. The room pulsed with anticipation as she awaited Jamie's answer, aware that the truth would define their futures in ways neither could yet perceive. This was the moment. She could feel it in her bones. But would it illuminate her path forward or plunge her deeper into the shadows? Ellen felt the air shift around her, thick with unsaid truths and a shared history that demanded to be acknowledged. Jamie's gaze softened momentarily, revealing the vulnerability beneath the armor of frustration. It means exactly what it sounds like, Jamie replied, her voice barely above a whisper. I'm tired of being the one who has to navigate this alone. You're not the only one tied to this legacy, Ellen. The implication hit Ellen like a cold wave. It wasn't just a business at stake, it was their familial bond, intricate and fragile. She took a step back, allowing space for reflection amidst the tension. What do you want to change? She asked, her tone probing yet respectful, an unfamiliar but necessary shift on her part. What if we revamped the shop? Make it more interactive, more community-oriented, Jamie suggested, her eyes beginning to light up with the vision she had nurtured inside. People want experiences now, not just a place to buy products. We could host workshops, make it more digital. But I need your support. If you co-manage this with me, it'll be a partnership, not just me taking over. Ellen felt a tug in her chest, caught between nostalgia and the tantalizing prospect of innovation. The clatter of change was an unsettling sound, but it whispered promises of rejuvenation. She had resisted the very idea of transformation for so long, fearful of losing what she had built with her husband. Could she embrace a partnership that twisted her roots into something vibrant and new? Your father always believed in community, Ellen said slowly, the recollection of her husband's warmth igniting a new resolve. He would want the shop to adapt, to grow with the times. But I need to know you're committed to keeping our values alive. Jamie nodded slowly, absorbing the weight of Ellen's words. I can respect that, but I also need you to trust me to carry that forward in my own way. It can't always look the way you frame it. As Ellen stood there, she wrestled with an overwhelming sense of loss. The familiar patterns that had governed her life and work suddenly felt precarious. Yet, battling through the fog of nostalgia, she remembered something. Adaptability had been the cornerstone of her success. Her husband had thrived in uncertainty, had often spoken about the necessity of evolution within the business landscape. Wasn't this the essence of legacy? To allow it the room to breathe and grow? I trust you, Jamie, she declared, her voice steadier as she felt a flicker of resolve ignite within. But we'll need to establish some ground rules. You can't just discard everything I've done. We can't disregard the foundation our family built. Her heart raced, not from fear, but from an undeniable urge to engage, to create a path forward together. Agreed, Jamie said, relief washing over her features. Let's create a strategy, set some objectives. We'll do this as a team. In that moment, they stood in a delicate balance, a little closer to each other, yet still remote enough that the past and future tugged at both ends of the equation. Yet Ellen couldn't shake the inkling that the deeper issues lurking beneath their discussions weren't settled. They had exchanged ideas, but not fully addressed the unspoken resentments that simmered beneath the surface. Ellen contemplated their shifting dynamic. Had she truly relinquished control, or had she discovered a new kind of strength in partnership? As she mulled over Jamie's proposals and the creative possibilities, she envisioned their shop transformed, alive again. But soon, another wave of doubt crashed over her resolve. Ellen was left grappling with a gnawing fear of whether their partnership could withstand the inevitable turbulence that came with change. And as she made plans to discuss these next steps with Jamie, a shadow of anxiety loomed over her. Would their collaboration hold together under the weight of their family's legacy, or would it fracture under the strain of conflicting visions? With her heart pounding and uncertainty swirling, Ellen embraced the complexity ahead, determined to navigate this precarious journey one step at a time. She couldn't help but wonder what would surface as they forged this new path together. As she turned to Jamie, ready to articulate her thoughts, something in the atmosphere shifted again, an uninvited tension that pressed in around them. There's something else we need to talk about, Jamie said, her expression suddenly serious. It's about the finances. There's something I've been keeping from you. Ellen's pulse quickened once more, as the air thickened with the anticipation of revelations yet to come. What new truth would unravel in the face of this already complicated partnership? Ellen felt a chill race down her spine as she processed Jamie's words, the gravity of the moment sharpening her instincts. The unease settled heavily in her stomach, mixed with a refuse of disbelief and blossoming dread. She found her voice, albeit shaky. "What do you mean, Jamie? What have you been keeping from me?" Jamie's hands twisted nervously in front of her, a telling sign of her own discomfort. "It's about the shop's finances. Sometimes things logistically operate behind the scenes that aren't so clear. I've had to take some risky steps to keep us afloat." Ellen's mind whirled, envisioning the ledgers filled with numbers and the bills that lined her desk. What steps? Had Jamie been reckless in her efforts, or was there something deeper at play? "What kind of steps?" she pressed, her heart hammering in her chest. "I took out a loan," Jamie replied, and the admission hung in the air like a cloud, thunderous with a pending storm. "A significant amount. It was the only way I thought we could buy new inventory, invest in these community-centric ideas we discussed. I thought—" "You thought?" Ellen interrupted, her voice firm yet laced with hurt. "You thought it was wise to go behind my back? This is a family business, Jamie. This is our legacy." The accusation landed like a slap. Jamie's defense crumbled, and she met Ellen's gaze with desperation. "I believed it was for the best. I've seen where the shop is headed, and we need to adapt to survive." Ellen shook her head, grappling with the revelation. "Adaptation doesn't mean diving into debts without consultation, Jamie. If you had trusted me enough to discuss this, perhaps we could have found another way." Tension crackled between them, a visible gap widening where once they had stood on the cusp of collaboration. Those fragile roots of familial trust, once intertwined, now felt as though they were unraveling with each word spoken. Ellen stepped back, needing distance to reflect. Had Jamie's ambition overridden her regard for the bond they shared? Ellen had often praised her daughter-in-law's drive, but now it felt duplicitous, like sharp thorns amidst what should have been blooming flowers. Ellen turned her back momentarily, focusing on the walls of the store. Their family history, embedded in the woodwork and bricks, called out to her. Memories of her husband working tirelessly through long nights flickered in her mind. She could hear his laughter in the back as they discussed plans to keep the shop alive. He would defend the values he held dear fiercely. As shaking resolve coursed through her, Ellen recognized the critical moment for her own development. What kind of leader did she want to be? A defensive wall against change? Or an adaptive force willing to wrestle with complex relationships while remaining loyal to the core values that shaped her family? She pondered the latter, yet swirled in uncertainty. "Jamie," she said, the weight of the moment transforming her voice as she turned slowly to face her again. "This is a hard path we're walking, but communication is vital. I cannot support your ideas or your decisions if we stand divided. We need to be honest with each other, and that means confronting the root of these choices." "I didn't want to burden you," Jamie replied, the barriers of her facade weakly held in place. "I thought I could handle it myself, and handling it alone nearly put us at risk. We can't build a future together unless we first confront these shadows in our past." Ellen took a deep breath, realization washing over her. "I can't pretend that everything is okay when it feels like it's unraveling." A heavy silence settled as they stared at one another, the complexity of their partnership starkly laid bare. Ellen wondered if there was a way through this, a way to honor the legacy of her husband while facing the tense realities of modern business with Jamie. Would this uncomfortable honesty be the catalyst for the trust they desperately needed? Ellen felt a flicker of determination stirring. She had to control what she could, starting with transparency. "Let's sit down and go through the finances, then chart a sustainable path forward together. But I need your commitment, Jamie. No more secrets." As Jamie nodded, a mixture of relief and fear crossed her face, signaling a fragile acknowledgement. They were not simply piecing an operation back together. They were redefining their relationship, wrestling through the haze of miscommunication and unspoken fears. Just then, a thought flickered through Ellen's mind. Could this strain actually forge a stronger bond? Could they use these trials to build something more resilient together? With that uneasy anticipation swirling in the air between them, a distant noise echoed from the back of the shop. A ruckus brought both women to pause, alert and internally tense again. Ellen's heart raced as she wondered what this latest development could mean for their fragile reconciliation. What, or who, awaited them behind those familiar walls, ready to threaten everything they were trying to rebuild? Ellen's heart thudded, an unsettling rhythm echoing her doubts. The noise from the back of the shop had drawn her focus away from the precarious rebuilding of her relationship with Jamie. She glanced at Jamie, who appeared equally unsettled, her eyes darting toward the stockroom door, anxiety plain on her face. Had their confrontation stirred up more than just their shared missteps? The sound intensified, thumps and then the clang of metal, a sign of disrupted order. It felt ominous, a prelude to chaos that could unravel the fragile threads of understanding they had newly woven. "I'll check it out," Ellen said, her voice steadying with resolve, though uncertainty shadowed her thoughts. As she approached the door, each step felt laden with the weight of consequences. What if this disturbance was a physical manifestation of the deeper turmoil now rippling through her life? She paused, resting a hand on the doorframe, steeling herself. This situation required more than just courage. It demanded a willingness to confront the truth, however unsettling it might be. With a swift push, she stepped into the back room, the harsh light illuminating scattered products and overturned boxes. A few of her long-term employees scrambled to regain control, their expressions a mix of panic and frustration. "What's going on?" she demanded, her authority tempered by concern. "We're trying to reorganize the back inventory," one employee, Mark, explained, his voice raising over the noise. "But we noticed someone has been sneakily removing supplies. We weren't sure how to handle it." Ellen's instinct kicked in, and she surveyed the chaos. This crisis had nothing to do with Jamie's revelations, and yet everything to do with the tides of change crashing into her world. She realized she was facing not just a logistical problem, but also a metaphorical crossing of boundaries, intrusions that reminded her of disrespect, just as Jamie had disrespected her trust. Taking charge, she rallied everyone with a firm but calm demeanor. "Let's clear the area and do a full inventory assessment. We need to be transparent with each other, just as I told Jamie." The staff nodded, visibly grateful for her direction. Ellen felt a flicker of empowerment. She realized leading in moments of chaos also meant becoming more resilient herself. As she helped tidy the space, picking up items and sorting them with the help of her team, she could feel her earlier tension release. This was the kind of problem-solving she thrived in, decisive action in the face of uncertainty. Bit by bit, her confidence began to grow amidst the mayhem, rekindling her sense of leadership. When the chaos settled, Ellen leaned against a wall, catching her breath. The operations debacle paled in comparison to what she faced with Jamie, but there was a striking parallel. They both needed frameworks to succeed. Without trust and communication in the family business, her relationship with Jamie would remain as chaotic as the inventory room had just been. Ellen walked back to the front area where Jamie stood, still deep in thought, running her fingers through her hair. Examining Jamie's expression, Ellen recognized they both had decisions to make, tough calls that would define how they moved forward. They couldn't just sweep issues under the rug anymore. They needed to confront the disorder head-on, starting with a truthful dialogue about their priorities. "Let's get back to our earlier discussion," Ellen said, her voice firm yet empathetic, seeing the fear lingering behind Jamie's determination. "We need clarity, not only for the shop but for us. Before we make any plans, I need to understand your vision completely, and I need your commitment to honesty from now on." Just as tension began to lift a fraction, another ruckus interrupted them, a loud crash from the back again, and Ellen's instinctual fear prickled to life. Her heart raced. "What now?" she muttered, half under her breath. They exchanged weary glances, the day's disruptions adding pressure to the already delicate conversation. Ellen braced herself, aware that this could be the moment that determined whether they shocked the fear out of their dynamic or let it fester unresolved. As she turned back toward the source of the noise, a thought flickered in her mind. Perhaps the storm brewing was not just within the shop, but within herself and Jamie. Did they both have the courage to face the discomfort head-on, learn from these challenges, and ultimately emerge stronger? Behind her lay not just a shop, but the precarious threads of family legacy she longed to save. As the noise grew closer, Ellen took a steadying breath, preparing for whatever awaited her and Jamie. A precarious crossroads that could redefine everything they knew. What awaited them could change the course of their destinies forever. Ellen narrowed her eyes at the doorway leading back to the stockroom, her body tensing once again. Stepping forward, she stepped into the chaos before her, heart pounding in sync with the disarray unfolding behind her. She could sense that something profound was about to shake their already fragile setup. The noise transformed from chaos to clarity as she entered, revealing an unsettling scene. Old stock shelves had collapsed under the weight of several boxes, seemingly piled too high, leaving a mess of empty packaging scattered like fallen leaves across the floor. Suddenly, fears she'd pushed aside reared their heads. Could this breakdown mirror the fractures in her own life? "Everyone, stay calm," Ellen shouted, her voice resolute, as she instinctively reclaimed her role as leader. "We need to align our efforts here, clear a path first, then assess the damage." As her colleagues nodded and began working under her guidance, she observed Mark and a couple of newcomers wrestling with stubborn shelves. A pang of frustration mixed with gratitude stirred within her. These were her people, the backbone of her business. Yet how could she lead them effectively when her own path felt so uncertain? Ellen grabbed a nearby walkie-talkie, a crucial tool for communicating with the team on the shop floor. The act grounded her momentarily, reminding her that reliability remained an integral part of her identity. "Janet, can you assist with getting some more hands up front?" she buzzed. "This situation is escalating, and we need to prioritize safety." As she returned her focus to the chaos around her, an unexpected realization washed over her. She thrived in adversity. At that moment, Ellen was not merely a business owner navigating turmoil. She was a strategist. Emotion surged, reminding her of the earlier encounter with Jamie, a moment mere hours ago that felt like a lifetime. Both instances reflected a crossroads in her life. The more she mulled over these escalating crises, the more reactive they seemed, forcing her to confront not just the external disorder, but also her internal discord. Just as she was finding her footing, the noise from the stockroom increased in intensity to the point where it felt suffocating. "Ellen!" Mark's urgent voice cut through her thoughts. "Somebody's here!" Her heart sank as every fear from the last few hours collided. An outsider in their back-end operations? The same urgency that reverberated in her life with Jamie now echoed in this workplace. Ellen left her post, moving swiftly towards Mark and the doorway. As she crossed the threshold, she faced a stranger, a middle-aged man with an authoritative posture and a warehouse clipboard. "I'm with the auditing agency," he stated bluntly, a stark contrast to her chaotic week. "We've received reports of some discrepancies in your inventory." Ellen steeled herself, the weight of this new revelation heavy in the air. An audit? This could expose more than just simple miscounts. It threatened the foundation of her enterprise. Faced with unforeseen adversity, her mind raced. This moment could either draw petulant reactions, or it could force her to finally claim the reins of both her business and personal life. The time had come to face everything at once, she thought fiercely, grappling with the potential fallout. Just as she prepared to respond, vulnerable truths surfaced about her own role in the unfolding drama with Jamie. Ellen made a mental note to revisit that conversation later. She couldn't let personal disputes sidetrack her sense of duty. In the midst of turmoil, she locked eyes with Jamie as the door swung open wider. The young woman observed the scene warily. Ellen sensed in that glance the lingering potential for connection or alienation, for accountability over dishonesty. Resoluteness swelled within her. She wouldn't backtrack now. "Let's talk," she called out to Jamie, inviting her into the confrontation by her side, their unuttered dialogue sparking the potential for a more profound discussion. "Together, we need clarity about everything." As they stood before the unexpected challenge, Ellen felt the pulse of her own anxieties once again surge beneath her skin. How far would she need to reach within to find the courage to persist, not just in confronting the auditing crisis, but in facing the profound uncertainties with Jamie? With the man's clipboard clutched tightly, Ellen braced for the reality, a truth potentially more shocking than anything she'd faced before. Was this truly just the beginning, or were they standing on the precipice of a more significant inflection point that could redefine them both? Ellen took a deep breath, the weight of the situation pressing against her. The man from the auditing agency noticed the shift in her demeanor, and his expression hardened. It was clear he expected compliance, but Ellen felt the unwavering stir of defiance rise within her. She was done letting external pressures dictate her life, both in the business and at home. "Let's keep this professional," she asserted, her voice firm as she moved to take control. "We'll cooperate fully, of course, but I need you to understand the context of what's happening here. It's not just numbers on your spreadsheet, it's the livelihood of my team." The auditor nodded, perhaps begrudgingly, but Ellen could see he respected her fortitude. The irony of asserting her authority to someone whose presence felt like a looming storm wasn't lost on her. This was her moment to take charge. Bringing Jamie into the conversation felt as much about building their collaboration as it was about deflecting the auditor's intimidating presence. "Jamie," Ellen said, glancing her way, "your input is crucial. We should clarify everything for him right now." "Are you sure?" Jamie asked, her brow furrowing. Ellen recognized that tinge of uncertainty in her voice, a reflection of the internal chaos they both faced, an invitation wrapped in the guise of caution. "Absolutely," Ellen replied, locking eyes with Jamie. "It's all on the table, and we need to face it head on." With a nod, Jamie stepped closer. The tension that hung between them thickened, edged by the uncertainty of what was about to unfold. Ellen sensed that their shared vulnerability might offer an unexpected allyship. By standing in unity, they could project an image of competence to the auditor. As they began to explain their inventory discrepancies, Ellen's mind raced with the implications. Each detail they shared was a double-edged sword, exposing vulnerabilities but also revealing their commitment to transparency. However, she couldn't shake the feeling that their interaction with the auditor was merely a symptom of a much deeper issue. The conversation flowed, but Ellen's thoughts remained tethered to Jamie's recent admission of wanting more from their professional relationship. It was a precarious situation, and she wasn't sure how to navigate the entwined threads of personal and professional ambitions. "Did you notice any patterns?" the auditor interrupted, jotting down notes with a hawkish focus that made Ellen fidget. "Patterns?" Ellen echoed, her heart racing. "Only that we've been moving quickly to improve operations. The chaos you walked into is just a small part of a larger restructuring effort." The word chaos brought a flood of memories to her consciousness, her relationship with Jamie paralleling the unstable handling of their business. Ellen's recent personal chaos blurred with their current conversation like an impressionist painting, striking yet unclear. As they moved through the specifics, Ellen's mind continued to spiral into introspection. What if the same passion she employed in her business didn't extend to her personal life? Could the scrutiny from this auditor be a reflection of her failure to take charge in her relationship with Jamie? Ellen's resolve solidified. To keep her business intact, she needed to not only confront the auditor, but also address the shadow of negligence looming in her personal life. It wasn't just about handling discrepancies anymore, it was about redefining her leadership. After the audit wrapped up, Ellen took a moment to breathe, the air heavy with unspoken truths. "Jamie, can we talk privately for a moment?" she said, her tone inviting yet serious. Of course, Jamie replied, her eyes revealing the complexity of their shared history. As they stepped away from the lingering presence of the auditor, Ellen felt a surge of hope and fear alike. This conversation could either renew their connection or deepen the divide between them. Once they reached a quieter corner, Ellen searched Jamie's face. "I can't keep ignoring the tension between us. We're at a tipping point." Jamie's expression cracked, revealing layers of vulnerability as she nodded. "I know. We've been sweeping things under the rug for too long." "Then let's lay it all out," Ellen urged, ready to finally confront the tangled mess of personal and professional dynamics that defined their relationship. With this turning point in sight, Ellen was aware that the stakes had just elevated. The conversation ahead had the potential to either unravel their connection or solidify a partnership capable of battling the audits and the uncertainties that lay ahead. "Are we ready to face this together?" she asked, heart pounding with the weight of sincerity, wondering if this would be the moment that finally changed everything. As Ellen and Jamie stood in the muted corner of the office, the atmosphere thickened with unarticulated truths. Ellen felt acutely aware that this was not just a conversation about work. It was a recalibration of their entire relationship, both personal and professional. She was determined to navigate through the tension with clarity and conviction. "Jamie, I've been thinking about everything," Ellen began, her voice steadier than she felt. "We can't let these issues fester any longer. We owe it to ourselves and to the team to establish a clearer line between our personal feelings and our professional roles." Jamie nodded slowly, her eyes betraying a mix of respect and apprehension. "I agree. But it's so complicated. I genuinely care about you, but I also want to excel in this role. Sometimes those feelings blur the lines. I worry that if we dig too deep, it could jeopardize everything." Ellen fought the rising swell of anxiety within her. "It's already complicated," she countered, insisting on the truth. "Ignoring it isn't going to make it go away. We've both poured ourselves into this project and into each other, and now we're at a crossroads." Their professional identities had interwoven with their personal ambitions, a situation rife with both promise and peril. The idea of unraveling that bond felt daunting, yet it also stirred a new sense of purpose within Ellen. She couldn't afford to remain timid. She needed to embrace her role as a leader in every aspect of her life. "What if we start small?" Jamie suggested, her voice hesitant yet hopeful. "Let's define our boundaries and how we can support each other moving forward without compromising our professionalism." Ellen considered this new approach. Defining boundaries would mean they could still be allies while growing into their respective roles. Maybe this was the pathway forward, not just for the business, but for their personal connection as well. "Right, boundaries," Ellen replied, her mind racing with implications. "But I want to be clear. I want us to communicate openly. If something is not working, I need you to tell me. I can't have a repeat of ignoring the obvious simply because it's uncomfortable." "I can do that," Jamie agreed, though she looked uncertain. They stood in silence for a moment, both contemplating the uncharted territory they were venturing into together, a hybrid professional and personal dynamic that could either be their greatest strength or their deepest vulnerability. "I think we should also establish a routine, regular meetings to touch base, discuss priorities, and ensure we're aligned," Ellen proposed, seizing the initiative. "Not just tactically, but also emotionally." The thought of forging forward ignited a spark within Ellen. This was the action step she had needed to take, a small but significant move toward reclaiming her power. The idea excited her. She envisioned sessions that would cultivate openness, where they could celebrate successes and confront challenges together, creating an environment that nurtured growth on both levels. "Okay, Ellen, let's do this," Jamie said, more resolutely now. "Let's outline our goals for the week and figure out a plan." However, just as a sense of hope began to settle, Ellen's phone buzzed violently in her pocket, startling them both. The message was from the auditor, an unexpected escalation that demanded immediate attention regarding further investigations. Ellen's stomach dropped. It was overtly apparent that this incident wasn't going to blow over easily. It looks like our conversation will be put to the test sooner rather than later. Jamie frowned, but then pulled herself together. We need to address this head on. Whatever it is, let's not back down. Ellen felt a rush of determination flood her veins. If she was going to lead through this tumultuous phase, at work or in her personal life, she needed to unite their efforts decisively. As they walked back into the conference room, Ellen stole a quick glance at Jamie. There was resolve in their shared glance that suggested this challenge could strengthen their bond. "We've got your back," she murmured, a small smile breaking through the tension. But deep down, uncertainty clung to Ellen. They were entering a battle where each decision would matter. Would their newly defined boundaries hold, or would the scrutiny from the audit prove too divisive? The meeting ahead could either solidify their joint resolve or dismantle everything they had built together. Ellen steeled herself, ready to face whatever came, yet acutely aware that the true test was just beginning. "Let's go show them what we're made of," she said, feeling the weight of courage settle within her as they stepped forward together, ready to confront not only their challenges but also the hidden truths of their intertwined lives. Ellen stood in front of the flower shop, the vibrant petals all around her a sharp contrast to the storm of emotions she had endured. The chaos had finally subsided, leaving her with clarity. She had faced the audacious choices of Jamie and confronted the truth buried in their relationship. From turmoil arose a newfound strength, and she had taken the reins of both her personal and professional journey. The confrontation with the auditor and the subsequent partnership discussions with Jamie had crystallized for Ellen what she needed to do. Both resolutions were beyond just business. They had become a means to reclaim her identity. She had spent years nurturing a legacy built on trust and love alongside her late husband, and now she was determined to ensure that legacy evolved without losing its essence. With Jamie at her side, they worked tirelessly to guide the shop back into operational order. Their profit margins expanded as they implemented a collaborative framework, blending Ellen's traditional approach with Jamie's innovative ideas. They introduced community workshops, pairing floral arrangement techniques with storytelling sessions about family history, paying homage to what truly mattered. Business metrics soon demonstrated tangible success. Sales soared, and customer engagement flourished. Ellen's heart swelled as she observed the transformation. The shop, once a stale representation of the past, was now a thriving hub of energy, a reflection of both women's spirits and hard work. Yet the most vital change lay not in the shop's revenue, but within Ellen herself. She had emerged from feelings of fear and doubt into a solid confidence grounded in her truth. Recognition soon followed. Their business won Best Independent Shop in a local competition, a validation of their hard work. The accolades brought not only satisfaction, but also a community that rallied around them. Ellen reveled in newfound ownership of her leadership, knowing she had become a formidable matriarch in both business and family, a role she had once deemed daunting. Jamie's evolution paralleled her own. They learned to build trust, respect, and open communication. Their relationship strengthened, renewed by accountability and shared ambition. They were allies supporting each other's growth. Ellen understood now that true leadership meant embracing vulnerability, yet standing firm in one's convictions. It meant allowing herself to be vulnerable while inspiring others to do the same. As she adorned her flower shop with fresh bouquets that reminded her of both joyous blossoming and familial roots, she felt the weight of her husband's legacy settle into her own identity. Ellen had accomplished not just a professional renewal, but a deep personal transformation that promised long-lasting change. Today was not merely another day at the flower shop. It was a celebration of resilience, trust, and the evolution of family, an epitome of all she had fought for. Ellen stood proudly in the doorway, ready to welcome customers anew, feeling a profound sense of belonging in her achievements. Emboldened by triumph and strengthened by the journey, Ellen's heart whispered a final truth. She had conquered the schemes that threatened to sever family ties, cultivating something extraordinary instead. Now, she was firmly established as an empowered leader, committed to navigating whatever challenges lay ahead. The journey had been turbulent, yet now, with her newly defined relationship with Jamie and the flourishing shop, Ellen understood. Real transformation required embracing every part of oneself. Her story was just beginning, and she was ready to write it. You need to subscribe now to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Your support truly makes a difference. Comment on your reactions and theories about this ending. Let's connect. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to witness this powerful conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to share. Every action matters.